Welcome to week 2 of module 2. This is Yannick and we're going to analyze the market demand today. Last week you determined the waste supply and you should have a better idea now where you get your raw material from, in which quality and at what price you need it. This week we're going to look at market demand. And for that, let's imagine that this here is your market. When we talk about markets, we mean all of the people who buy a certain service or product and everybody who sells this product or service in a given area. So let's imagine you focus on fertilizer production. Then we're looking at the fertilizer market in, let's say, your municipality or the district that you want to distribute it in. Before venturing into that market, you will need to find out if it makes sense to sell fertilizer. So, if there are enough potential customers in this market. Yeah, this is because there is no point in undertaking the effort to develop a R fertilizer product if nobody wants to buy it. The objective of analyzing market demand now is to see if there are enough customers around that could potentially buy your product. You might have noticed I said potentially because the market is made up of demand and supply. This means that not everybody who's out there and needs fertilizer will buy your product, even if they have a need that you can satisfy. So they need fertilizer. There are other businesses out there in the market that can cater to that same need by selling chemical fertilizer or even by selling the exact same product that you offer. That is the other side of the market supply, so your competition. We will take a closer look at your competitors next week. Now this week, when we look at the market demand, you want to make sure that, now here, these customers buy your product frequently and in big enough quantities so that you can actually survive as a business. Now for this, the first thing we need to do is calculate the market size. You get to the market size by multiplying the number of customers with the amount they're buying, for example, per year. In the next step, you have to estimate which share of these customers could potentially or realistically buy your product. So what is your market share? Multiply this number with your selling price. And this directly translates into your annual sales, which in turn allow you to assess if you can cover your costs and survive. Okay, let's look at this with an example. Kusen is a women's initiative located in Kigali, Rwanda. Kusen produces briquettes for heating made from municipal solid waste. Now, they sell briquettes to prisons. So, in Rwanda there's around 30 prisons, which is the market size. Kusen sells to 16 of them. So this is their market share. Each prison buys 94 tons of briquettes per year. So the annual sales volume of Kusen amounts to 1,500 tons of briquette. Now multiplying this number with the selling price of $122 per ton results in an income of around $183,000 per year. In the case of Kusen, this is enough to cover its costs of round about $105,000 and to make a profit of $77,600 and a few US. I hope this example made it clear what market size and share mean for your R business. Apart from assessing these parameters, you should also look into the future and forecast which products or services the demand may grow for in the future. This will inform your strategic planning and give you useful clues on the business activities you should prioritize and where you may be able to expand your business in the future and grow. Now, to put a bit more meat onto the bones of the market demand concept, let's take a look at a few key questions that you need to answer to assess your market demand and growth potential. First question is, what are potential market segments and their sizes? Okay, before you can calculate the number of potential customers in the market, you need to define customer segments for your product or service. Intuitively, you've probably already thought about customer segments because you've identified the challenges that some of them face. So if you're selling irrigation water, you probably want to sell it to farmers. Your compost you might want to sell to nurseries, and the biogas may go to rural households. These farmers, nurseries or rural households are what we call customer segments. Why? Well, the idea behind customer segments is that you cluster types of buyers into groups that have some similar needs, behaviors, or other characteristics, like that they come from the same area or have the same gender, income, values, etc. Let's go back to the example from before. So Kusin, the briquette business from Rwanda, has chosen to cater to the customer segment prisons. Now, although there are more potential customers in Rwanda that could be interested in buying briquettes for heating, Kusin has decided to cater to prisons only for the moment because the company has limited capacity to produce and deliver briquettes. The distribution and money collection is also a lot easier for them when they look at prisons because they enter into long-term bulk delivery contracts with these prisons, something that wouldn't work with households. Okay, so when defining the characteristics of your customer segments, be as specific as possible so that you don't have a segment that is too large to cater to. Here's an example. If you're selling nutrient-rich irrigation water and you define your segment as farmers in the Middle East, then you're being too general. First of all, not all farmers in the Middle East need irrigation water. Olive farmers, for example, oftentimes don't irrigate their trees. Secondly, all farmers in the Middle East are a lot of farmers. Think of your capacity. You're a startup with limited resources, and in the first 10 years of operation, you will likely not be able to conquer the whole market in the Middle East. Having said that, being too specific is also not a good idea. If you're selling biogas for cooking and you define your market segment as the poor households living in a specific Indian village with 5,000 inhabitants, then your potential market is probably not large enough to make enough sales to survive over the years. The next question we need to consider is whether your customer segments already use an alternative product, and if so, whether they are willing to switch to your product. You might have had trouble with the previous question because no one of your potential customer segments is currently using a RRR product. For example, no households in the region you're looking at is using biogas for cooking yet. This is the situation that most RRR entrepreneurs face. And that's because the concept of recovering nutrients, water or energy from waste is relatively new in many countries. Consequently, that means that there are few RRR products that exist in the market as of today. Now, if this is the case for you, you will have to assess the market size for the existing alternative or substitute products. What I mean with alternative or substitute product is a product that is currently being sold in the market that could potentially be replaced by your RRR product. Examples of these alternative products are, for example, firewood and charcoal as energy sources, artificial fertilizer as a nutrient source, or, simply wastewater from the drain for irrigation. Now, the last example might have startled you because it's not an actual product being sold. And also, it's dangerous to apply dirty wastewater to crops that are meant for human or animal consumption, right? Still, this is the reality in some cases and has to be considered as an existing alternative to your RRR product if you're looking at selling treated wastewater for irrigation. In such cases, it is now particularly important to reflect if potential customers would really be willing and able to buy your RRR product or service as a feasible alternative to cater to their needs. So you've figured out the market size for your customer segment. What's important now is to understand how much of your product these customer segments will use and when. To estimate the total volume of your annual sales and hence the production that you will have to deliver, you need to multiply the number of your potential customers by the volume of the product that they will consume during a certain period of time, let's say 1 year. A farmer, for example, needs approximately 20 cubic meters of water, so 1 water truckload, to irrigate a hectare of maize per day. Theoretically, this would add up to 365 truckloads of irrigation water that you could sell per year. But stop now, since the farmer only needs to irrigate his maize during the dry season, which lasts, for example, from June to September, your potential sales reduce to 122 truckloads. This does not only have an impact on your overall annual income, but will also affect your cash flow during the year. You will only be selling your product and having an incoming cash flow during these 4 months. The next question I want to discuss with you is how much your customer segments are willing and able to pay for your RRR product. The easiest way for you to get an indication how much your potential customers are willing to pay is to look at how much they're currently paying for alternative products. Now, when you analyze this, keep in mind the following points. 1, customers may be willing to pay very little or nothing if their current solution is for free. Remember the example of farmers using wastewater directly from the drain. Secondly, customers may be willing to pay more if you can provide them with a product that has some kind of added value compared to the product they're currently using. So, high yield of crops from organic fertilizer or smoke-free cooking experience using biogas. We will look at these added values and benefits in more detail in the next module. Lastly, another factor that is important is the income of your customer segments, as well as the level of service you offer with your product. For example, using instructions, giving demonstrations, having a warranty, etc. These are additional points that will influence the willingness to pay. Let me give you an example. The use of fecal waste as fertilizer is practiced by most farmers in Ghana. A study analyzed that farmers are likely to pay more for fertilizer if the product offers improvements and additional benefits. Now, these results show that farmers are willing to pay an additional 51 US dollar cents for 50 kg of fecal compost that is packaged, and an additional 32 cents if application instructions and nutrient compositions are added to the fertilizer in the form of a label. This willingness to pay was especially higher with farmers that had experience with the use of fecal compost and whose household income and size was higher. Now, whatever the factors might be that influence the willingness of your customers to pay a certain price, you need to make sure that you get a good estimation of it. Because if you price too low, you will not be able to cover your costs. If you price too high, on the contrary, customers will not buy your product and you will equally not be able to cover your costs. So really put some due attention to this question and get some very good estimates. This brings us to the last and maybe even more tricky question. How will your market develop in the future? Apart now from estimating market size and potential sales for your product, you need to look ahead, understand the development of your market in the future. Just like ensuring that you have waste available in sufficient quantities in the future, you also want to make sure that the demand for your product will remain stable or ideally even grow in the coming years. While market growth for RRR products is something that is difficult to research because there's hardly any evidences available, there are some factors that influence the demand for RRR products that are well researched. For this, it's important to understand that the demand for your RRR product will be driven by the scarcity of resources, water, nutrients, or energy, depending on your business model. What you do is you offer a direct solution to this scarcity problem by recycling waste and retrieving the valuable resources. So, if you're, let's say, selling irrigation water, then longer dry seasons that come with climate change will likely impact the demand for your water. Similarly, if you're selling biogas, the desertification caused by climate change will make it harder for households to find firewood, and eventually they will turn to your product in the future. Likewise, the decline of global phosphorus reserves, which is an important macronutrient, will lead to price increases in artificial fertilizer. This means that more and more farmers will turn to cheaper nutrient sources like RRR fertilizer. So what we suggest is that instead of researching the dynamics of RRR markets, which is something difficult, you can also gather data on climate predictions for your target area or data on the development of artificial fertilizer markets or global phosphorus reserves, etc. Find the right things to look at. Now, this type of data should be readily available on the internet. But just like last week, you might not find just all of the answers online. So to get data on market forecasts, you can also talk to market analysts or other experts. And I urge you, always use the opportunity to talk to your potential customers to get an understanding of their view on the market and market developments. So now it's time for you to actually go out there and assess the market demand and development for your RRR business model. I suggest you use the questions and examples we discussed as an orientation. And moreover, I urge you to download the worksheet below for further guidance in this process and also to record your findings. So get into the research, understand the demand that is out there, understand how your market will develop. And after you've filled in the worksheet and really got a proper insight into the demand in the market, I really look forward to seeing you in week 3. Good luck with your research and see you then. Bye.